Hello, hello. Welcome to our Soul's Journey podcast. My name is Lila, and it is so nice to meet you. Now, since you know my name, I'd love to know your name. So leave a comment of your preferred name so I can say hello to you in the next episode. Thank you, everyone, for coming back and tuning in this week. And if you are a listener from last week, thank you for coming back. Before we begin, I want you to take a deep breath in and out. And express unconditional gratitude. Doesn't that just uplift the vibe? I love it. I love it. It's so vibey in here now. Now, you are going to love what's in the episode today. We are talking about honesty, specifically when it comes to ourselves and the decisions we make in our day-to-day lives. Frankly, it's something a lot of us have conditioned ourselves to believe doesn't hold much value or isn't important. You and I are going to recognize and dive into how honesty is going to help you transform yourself in your life by recognizing what your soul wants and craves. And guys, I want you to stick around to the end because I'm going to be sharing how being honest with myself, specifically when it comes to my soul and human ego, being honest with myself daily in big ways and small ways has affected my life years later. All right. Are you ready to talk about something that you probably haven't talked about since you were in preschool? Seriously, side note, have you guys ever wondered why values stop being taught when we're so young? Like, I'm pretty sure everyone who went to my middle school could have used a crash course in honesty and its consequences. And you know what? I know I'm not the only one who thinks that way either. Since our Soul's Journey is a newer podcast, I'm going to be experimenting over how each episode is structured and what I talk about and how. This first season, I'm really centering on key elements of spiritual development and other topics that I consider relevant to that subject. I'm going to be drawing on my own experience and what I've learned, as well as how and what I did when things became too uncomfortable for me, and how you can apply what I've learned for yourself. So for starters, honesty to me has been the top priority in being intentional with my spiritual development. Once I recognized that honesty was a building block for yourself, people, places, and events, it became so much more than a value. It became a tool to help excel forward in what I was choosing. You cannot grow, learn, take accountability, or recognize the person you are without being honest with yourself. Believe me, I've tried many times. And look, you don't need to be some sort of saint and profess your honest thoughts and feelings to every single person you ever meet. Not only is that a little aggressive, but from a broad perspective, it's so completely unnecessary and not the point of what I'm saying. I think a lot of us choose to be dishonest with ourselves because it's so easy to, especially in today's age. Why would we choose to say that this job or career no longer works for us when we could stay there and keep the same discomforts and keep affording our bills? Why would you choose to create more friendships with people who reflect your new set of values when the people you've been friends with for years still go out and party and have fun like the old version of you loved? Why should I take a leap of faith and trust that this town I've never visited and people I've never met are a part of this next chapter of my life, when it's so easy to continue the version of myself and my life that I've spent years co-creating with the universe? As I've been on this journey, something I've come to realize and learn was it's in our human ego to resist change. Comfort keeps us safe, and on a deeper level, it keeps us alive. It's how human beings as a species are programmed to think. And it's worked. It's kept us alive for a very long time, clearly, as we're the most advanced species on this planet. If you recognize any of these circumstances as familiar to you or remind you of something you have going on in your life, then I am happy to tell you the universe is giving you an option to grow and change. It is up to you to make this change and no one else. Okay. And I know you may want to blame other people and say that circumstances outside of yourself are the reason for this, but it's up to you. You decide and no one else. And before I go further, I did not once say it was easy or comfortable or funsies, okay? There is a lot of love and light in the spiritual development, but it is also very, very difficult. This is one of those times where it's on the more difficult side. So I'm giving you that warning. I didn't say it was easy, comfortable, or funsies, okay? Regardless, it is an incredible and underrated tool in spiritual development. I fully back it. Fully. And even more incredible if you choose to practice it as a core value. And frankly, I don't hear any of the spiritual gurus talk about it, and I think people should. It's hard to practice a divination if you can't be honest with yourself. Now, before you start creating goals or envisioning the version of you that you want to become, which is absolutely incredible and what I encourage you to do, take a moment to breathe, please. Since we're talking about change today, I'm sure you're going to end up envisioning yourself changing. And I want to kind of create that blank energetic slate in your body as much as I can. So we're going to breathe in. Beautiful. Any conscious changes you want to create require an honest checkup about where you are and what you think, feel, and do. There's something incredibly important to mention here, and that's that this honest check-in with yourself is not about what you're capable of doing in the future. It's about what you're doing now. To mention, I was going to talk about myself and my experiences, and I think this is a good place to put this story. It covers a few different areas of my life, and I think it will relate to some extent with most people listening. So, back a while ago, at the end of my second year of college, I had a complete mental breakdown. And it wasn't like, oh, I was a little stressed. No. My mental health was hanging on by a thread. And I mean, this thread was like a piece of used floss. Like, if you can imagine, like, when floss gets like really fuzzy and soft and it almost feels like cotton, like one of those tiny strands is what I mean. Completely worn. Just to give you some sort of metaphorical visual. I had gotten to the point where my body was completely worn out and burnt out. I worked full-time. I went to school full-time. I was not getting enough sleep. I wasn't eating, and by that I mean diagnosed eating disorder, wasn't eating. Okay. I had chronic anxiety. My stress level was through the roof. I knew in my gut I had to break up with my boyfriend, and that scared the absolute shit out of me because at the time I was like, how can I break up with my boyfriend? He's done nothing wrong. Like I said, it was a gut feeling. I changed my major because I had a panic attack in the middle of one of my classes and then was distraught at the end of the year because I failed 2 classes in the major I changed to. This was one of the most painful moments in my entire life. Not the most painful, but one of the most painful moments. It was the catalyst of not dating for years. It gave me one of the most insane timelines I've ever been on in my entire life and gave me a perspective I never thought I'd come to understand. Overall, it was painful, but I learned so much about myself and my life. And part of the reason I think and act the way I do today was because of that scenario. Now, I feel like I can hear you already. You're probably saying this is going to turn out like, she's so happy she suffered and you have to go through hard things. No, objectively, I do agree with you. You do have to go through hard things. We all do. But that's not the point of me telling you this, okay? In fact, there are still very rare and occasional moments I look back at this point in my life and I'm bitter about it. Very, very rare. Like, I've done it a handful of times. At first, when this all had gone down, I was so angry at the universe and my guides for like everything. I was like, how could this happen to me? I thought because I was A-okay with everything I'd done for myself that I was creating the life that I wanted. I know you can't see it. Eventually you will see me, but I'm putting up air quotes when I say wanted. But my soul did not want these things. My human ego wanted these things. I wanted to be self-sufficient. I wanted to be in an authentic and loving relationship. I wanted to have enough knowledge so I could sell houses. See what I'm getting at? Technically, yes, I did have all these things, or was in the process of them, but they weren't aligned with my soul. And if I'd admitted what I really wanted, and frankly, what I needed, and been honest with myself, I would have hurt myself and others a lot less. I can look back at every single aspect of this version of myself and see where not being honest led me down to what felt like rock bottom. I can name just 3 separate examples from this point in my life, but there are more. 1, not being honest with myself about eating. I had gotten to the point where it was so bad, I was having heart palpitations like daily. I was getting dizzy, and I had like the worst brain fog ever. The only reason it didn't affect me at work as much as it should have was because I was a server, and at that point, serving was like a reflex in the back of my hand. I never had to think about what I was doing. Like, I had been at that place for so long that, I mean, everything was basically a habit, even like customer complaints if something was wrong from front of house to back of the house. It was a habit. And I didn't think about much what I was doing. Not once was I like, hey, maybe you should consider the fact that you won't even eat a tomato. Like, girl, it's a tomato and I'm Italian. It's in my DNA. Concerning, or maybe saying, hey, you haven't had a meal that was like more than 200 calories that you didn't throw back up immediately in like 3 days. Nope. None of those conversations happened. 2, not once did I remind myself that I didn't really want to go to college in the first place, and I kept doing things to make it work. When in all honesty, I didn't want to go at all. Not in the beginning, not after the first year, not after the second year, not after I changed my major, and definitely not after I saw how much I was going to owe for my student loans. 3, when I chose not to be honest with myself about the fact that my anxiety had my body so tense that years later, even now, I'm almost traumatized by the pain and stiffness and stress my muscles, tendons, and bones felt. And to anyone who has ever dealt with this or is going through any of these things, first off, can I just say how strong you are? You're a strong ass motherfucker. I'm so sorry if you've ever felt any pain or anything similar to what I just expressed and what I've gone through. I promise that there is a different reality available for you. I won't tell you how, because I am not in the business of lying to people, and I genuinely don't know how it will come for you. But I do know that you are not meant to become confined to a cage filled with your own demons you can never escape from. Even in my darkest moments, I told myself in my head, because I wouldn't even say it out loud, I believe in the good. And that fed my soul the strength it needed in my hardest moments. I can say now that I am no longer affected by either eating disorders, which, yes, were diagnosed, which makes me want to cry because that version of me never thought I'd actually get to enjoy food again. I'm no longer in college, and rightfully so, because what I want to do with my life does not require a college degree. As for anxiety, I do not have chronic, severe, or daily anxiety. I will say though, especially when I'm at like a big transition point in my life, I do forget the power and control I have over my own thoughts. And it is something I need to remind myself of. Though, in my hardest moments, it is never as hard as it was then, and much, much less than it ever was in high school. So that brings me to my point earlier. How does this, everything I just expressed, apply to you? How does all of this help you to be honest with yourself? I mention this story because I can clearly see when I was choosing to be dishonest with myself and my soul. I chose conforming to societal standards instead of choosing what made my soul sing. And yes, I was in a way happy. I mean, I wasn't forced into any of those things. I did pray for those things and the universe provided them, but I wasn't listening to my soul. So how did I start becoming honest with myself and my soul? This is the key, all right? It's a big one. Daily practice. Starting small at first. It looked like, do I want this piece of cheesecake? Do I really want to go to Trader Joe's, even though it's 30 minutes away? The answer was yes, by the way. I'm a whore for Trader Joe's. I love Trader Joe's so much. So much. Do I actually like this shirt on me? Do I want to take a nap? I started practicing honesty in small ways daily. And when I started this, I had no clue that I was just creating a habit in my brain. I just thought if I couldn't control the big events in my life, I could at least have a say in the small ones, because at the time I was still convinced none of that was really my fault, and I was just the victim of the whole situation. Looking back, obviously no. Those were clearly the consequences of my actions. I went to healthline.com, by the way, to see how long it takes a habit to form. And in that article, on average, it says 66 days, but it's been years. And it's still hard at times, but not nearly as often as it was at first. I'm not sure how long it will take you. I can say daily practice is what I do. And it's really hard at first too, because it's not something you're used to. It makes you uncomfortable because being honest with yourself requires going out of your own way emotionally. It's not going to feel right to your brain because you're probably not being honest all the time. So you got to like create that new little wiring in your brain. And then when it comes to your identity, it's like, fuck, man. So, I mean, it's not easy at first, but as you build on it daily, I will say it does get easier. About 4 months after my mental breakdown was when I was able to finally start deciding what I wanted to do with my life. I was still practicing honesty in small ways, but felt a pull to be honest with myself about my career. At first, I wasn't thinking long term, but I was able to start making honest decisions with myself about what I wanted for my job and my career and my skill set. And I would bounce back and forth between change and staying comfortable. When I left a serving job I really loved, it took me like a month to make the decision to change jobs. And I mean, the seed to change jobs was planted like 2 months before I even started like to just think about not working there anymore. That was like my first big honest decision. And like I said, it took me like 30 days to admit to myself that I really needed to change jobs. I couldn't have gotten to my first sales job. That's what I transitioned to without choosing to be honest with myself in small ways first. And my first sales job was like my first big girl job. Like that was like my first ever kind of corporate-y, kind of not job, but like it wasn't a corporate serving job. So I was like, big girl job. After I started my first sales job, this company was one that pushed a lot of self-development because they wanted you to work your way up, and the best way to lead was by developing yourself, which I agreed with, but my soul just didn't want to do. And I didn't admit that to myself at first, which is crazy because didn't I have to be like insanely honest with myself to even get that job? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. And I'm telling you this because this is one of those things that I think is just, it's such a good learning lesson. And even though it did take me 4 months to admit it to myself, I did admit it. At first, I did genuinely want to work my way up. Mostly, I think at that time, I just didn't have confidence or any idea in what I really wanted to do. At that point, I had put off a lot of my woo-woo side, so I wasn't even thinking about spiritual life coaching or tarot. Over time, I didn't realize it, but my soul was pulling me towards my passion. And selling people into a free quote was just so dull. Oh my God. I just wasn't that desperate for money that I was gonna sacrifice who I chose to be rich. Because the money will come. And it took me a long time to admit that, but my life is better for it now. As I worked through my first sales job, I learned the key question that everyone should use when deciding really anything. And that is, take a deep breath before I say this. Is this what you really want? Is this what I really want? I want you to ask yourself that out loud. And just see how you feel and what pops into your head. I know that there's something that immediately connected in your brain where you're at least doing some sort of check-in with yourself. Maybe a situation, or maybe it's part of your identity, but I know there's something. And if it opened up a can of worms and you feel like your brain is on overload, which is what happened to me when I started using this, you can do 3 things. You can go to your voice notes and start venting. Feel free to save it, delete it, but if you save it, you can look at your progress in like 3 years. So, whoop whoop. Call up a friend and vent to them. I usually try to stay away from that though, unless I feel called to vent to someone. There's nothing wrong with venting to a friend whatsoever. I just use it sparingly because it can overwhelm people, especially when it's negative, which if you feel negative about something, feel negative. I don't like putting negativity on people. I'm not arguing against venting to another person, but I like to transform myself privately too. If I do feel like I should be picking up the phone and calling someone, then I will. Or you can create a Google account if you don't have one, or just like any account where you can get like some free version of Microsoft Word. I know Google has Google Docs. And get to typing and write it out on a Google Doc. Or you can do my personal favorite and what I recommend, and that is journaling. But do what helps you the most. Is this what you really want? Is this what you really want? Is this what you really want? It's like 5 words, and I use this every day for anything. And the more you consciously ask yourself that, the more it's ingrained within you. I'm not exactly sure how to describe this in a scientific way, but I ain't gotta ask myself that consciously anymore, and it's still like the knee-jerk reaction for myself. When did you ask yourself that last? Is what you're driving to now what you really want? Is the major or college you're going to what you want deep down? A phrase that I've really come to understand as I began to use this phrase for much deeper purposes like identity and my passions is it's simple, not always easy. And I'm sure that if you're listening to this, then you're either nodding, going, oh my fucking God, yes. Or you're in a deep moment of reflection thinking, holy fuck. I mentioned in the beginning, I would say how it's affected me. And years later, it's led me here, to you, in this podcast, telling you how it's worked day after day, year after year, through identity and identity from job to job. My passions never really changed. They have expanded though, so that's something to know. Thinking of what's possible, doing a check-in with yourself, and being honest about what you want and acting on it is simple, but it can be the most intense, mind-altering mind-fuck moment when you're choosing a new version of you or the old version of you, thus making it incredibly difficult. I'm not going to get into this too much of the episode, but this is also why you should learn to tap into your soul and what you really want on a soul level. Because if you tie the reason you want to be honest to what your purpose and passions are in this life, then it certainly helps to get through the pain and discomfort of honesty for the sake of doing something or being someone that lights you up for the rest of your life. Is this what you really want? Is it? Only you know. I don't know, baby. This is all you. This is a marathon, not a sprint, okay? Don't get too stressed. Just a little every day. And remember, simple, not easy, but completely doable. So, what do you think? It's only the second episode, but I welcome all constructive criticism, and I genuinely would love to know how this helps you guys. I've loved the conversation we've had today. I know that this is helpful, not only because it's changed my life, but I asked the universe if I should talk about this on here for this episode, and they said yes. So take it up with the universe if this really hits deep. Not me, okay? I'm just the messenger. This podcast is new, and I would love to grow it and share my journey and what I have to say about it with even more of you guys. So I ask, if this resonates, please share it on Insta, Snap, Facebook, anywhere you guys see social media. Because remember, this isn't my soul's journey. This is our soul's journey. Leave your story in the comments. Other than that, I want you to have the most amazing day and week ever, and don't forget to give gratitude for the smallest things. Other than that, I want you to have the most amazing day and week ever, and don't forget to give gratitude for the smallest things. Have a great week, guys. I'll see you later. Bye.